So, it's 2023, and with all the new iPhones around, it's natural to wonder whether you should upgrade to the latest iPhone or not. What if I told you that the iPhone 11, which was released in 2019, is still a great option to consider purchasing in 2023? That's right, although the iPhone 11 is now 4 years old, it still packs a punch in terms of performance, features, and price. With its powerful A13 Bionic chip, dual camera system, Face ID, Touch ID, and large liquid retina display, the iPhone 11 is still a great option for those in the market for a newish smartphone and on a budget. So, let's start with the display. This display is the last of the non-OLED displays that are in the iPhone 12, 13, and 14 series. It also features a true tone display which shows the true tone of the image in different lighting conditions. It also supports for haptic touch, which is a software-based technology that kicks in when a long press is applied to the screen, which offers a small vibration as acknowledgement following the press, such as haptic feedback, hence the haptic touch name. With a peak brightness of 625 nits, which looking at the newer iPhones such as the 14 Pro, which has a peak brightness of 800 nits, you would expect a lower brightness considering that this is a 4-year-old iPhone. However, you hardly notice the difference in bright lighting conditions compared to the 14. I would say that this should not stop you from having this phone in your back pocket. So this is something that you should consider before getting this iPhone, which is still an amazing phone to own in 2023. The display also features a notch that houses the front-facing camera, which we now know on the iPhone 14 Pro series as the dynamic island. However, if you are moving from the newer models, you do notice this bigger notch design. Compared to the two, you can see that the iPhone 11's notch has slightly smaller icons on the top right and left corners of the screen. To be honest, if you are using this iPhone or are getting this as your first iPhone, you barely notice it after some time of using it. So it's definitely nothing to worry about. You do start to wonder what else could have been done to better the user experience of this notch. Maybe it's just me, but when I look at the notch compared to the iPhone 14 Pro, I feel like it is not as smooth. This is mainly because it doesn't do much for you from a workflow perspective as compared to the dynamic island. In Apple's defense, you could say that Apple had the vision for the dynamic island but needed a framework first. With this, you could start to see how this transformed into the dynamic island feature. So, let's say you were in charge of the design team at Apple. Would you have kept this design or done something else different to better the user experience on the iPhone 11? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Okay, so back to the build of this iPhone, which features rounded corners. This iPhone also has IPX68, which means it is dust and water resistant with a maximum depth of 2 meters for 30 minutes. The build is still sleek and modern in 2023. The glass back as well as a durable aluminium frame gives it a premium look and feel. Most people may not be fans of the glass back because of how easy it was to crack when it fell and the number of fingerprints it would leave behind. But should that stop you from buying this phone in 2023? Definitely not. Okay, so let's talk performance. When it was first introduced, it featured the stunning A13 Bionic chip, which at the time was a leap forward in performance compared to the A12 Bionic chip found on the iPhone XS. Although it might not be the fastest chip on the market in 2023, it still is more than capable of handling daily tasks while still delivering a smooth user experience. So, what makes it still a good option for you today? This is because most people that want an iPhone wanted to do basic things like answer phone calls, surf the web, and capture moments. If you're not too fussy about things such as having the best performance in your phone but still want a good iPhone, then you should consider this iPhone. Don't get me wrong, the latest models are always the ones that you should look at, and they're always better in some way. However, not everyone needs to break the bank for what they want from their smartphone. This is the case I want to make for those people that don't want to spend a lot on a phone but still want to get a phone that can keep up with today's demands. In South Africa, you are still able to get this iPhone for $120 at the iStore, and looking at the iPhone 14 range, you're looking at $800. So that might tempt you to want to look at the more affordable iPhone 11 so that you don't break the bank. One thing that you should always keep in mind is that it's always better to upgrade when you need it. That is, upgrading every year might not be the sensible thing to do if it means breaking the bank each and every time. This is important to consider year because there is no reason in breaking the bank each year when there are other options that are out there for you. Another concern that you might have is with receiving updates. For the next few years at least, you don't have to worry about this iPhone being phased out from receiving updates like the older iPhones. And like I said before, most people want a phone that is reliable and can do the basics of a smartphone and that is not frustrating to use. But there are downsides to having this phone in 2023, and that is because of multitasking. It does feel sluggish after some time, but when you are moving down from the newer models, you do notice it more. Even with the 4 GB of RAM, it does tend to be slow when multitasking with other applications. However, if you are upgrading from an older phone or this is your first iPhone, you might not spot it right away, but after some time, you will definitely notice it. So let's talk about the camera now. Now, this isn't the greatest camera on the market, and this is mainly due to Smart HDR3, which was introduced after the iPhone 11. The reason the Smart HDR3 is better is because it handles dynamic range better than on the iPhone 11. Scenes with bright skies will look better balanced on the later models compared to the iPhone 11, but the difference is difficult to notice during daytime shooting. There you go. Look, I'm not saying that it's the worst camera quality out there, but they are better with more features that allow you to shoot high quality video and photography. So I decided to compare the different low light images of the iPhone 14 Pro so that you can see clear winner in this test is the iPhone 14 Pro. But not only in low light, but in the daytime, and the amount of detail that the iPhone 14 and 13 can capture over the 11. The iPhone 11 is still very impressive. So what about portrait mode? The iPhone 11 is still able to take great portrait mode photos in 2023. Look, I'm gonna be honest, it might not be the best, but if you're on a budget, this will do. Although it seems to struggle in certain lighting conditions like I mentioned previously. The depth mapping on the 13 and 14 Pro do seem a lot better because of the improved machine learning on the later iPhones. I found this issue to occur mainly during low light conditions as I put it up against the iPhone 13 and 14 Pro. I have to be honest, some people may be like, so what? It still can take decent looking images. And you are right in saying this, but you are limited in the features that you have on this iPhone. For example, you do not get the cinematic mode feature for a video as you do with the iPhone 13. It is an older phone, so you wouldn't expect it to have all the latest features. I also compared the standard photos and here's how it looks. The camera does handle daytime images pretty well considering that this is a 4-year-old iPhone. The balance on the ultra-wide camera on this iPhone, and surprisingly, it is not that bad. It just lacks a bit of detail compared to the iPhone 13 and 14 Pro. I mean, you still can take good images, but the detail and white balance will mean that you won't get the same level of detail in images as you would in the newer models. Some people may just want to capture the moment, and the level of detail, like whether it is ProRes or ProRAW, probably won't be of their top concern. You would think it's a silly question to ask if you could become a content creator with this iPhone. If this is the only thing that you have, then why not? I shoot all of my videos in 4K with this very iPhone, and I found it to work for me. Although it might not have the latest features such as ProRes, Pro Action, and Cinematic Mode, it is still my #1 go-to for YouTube. When I do need the extra features, that's when I use the 14 Pro. If you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that I always stress the importance of upgrading your storage if you want to use this phone to create content and for longer form content. But I'm sure if you're getting this phone in 2023, you wouldn't want to get it in 64 gigabytes. Maybe you do, but I suggest that the more storage, the better. Check out my iPhone 14 Pro video that goes more in depth on getting more storage. Alright, let's now get into the battery and how that has been so far on this iPhone. Surprisingly, the battery has held up fairly well over the years, considering that the battery health is still at 90% 4 years later. Depending on your daily usage, you can get all day battery life with the battery health of 90%. There are refurbished and used options, which I would say if you're choosing that path, anything under 90 to 95% battery life is a no-go, especially if it is used, because you would have to pay extra to have your battery replaced, and that would cost you more from a consumer standpoint. When it comes to purchasing iPhones, getting it from an authorized Apple reseller seller is always the best path because you can always return it if there are problems with your device. I say refurbished because you can still get a good refurbished iPhone 11 for much cheaper and with more storage options if you're lucky. So what is the future of this iPhone? Well, with all of these features that we've discussed, this iPhone will still be around for some time. So if you want to upgrade to have this as your main device or your secondary device, consider what this iPhone would do in your life. What purpose would it serve in your everyday life? And also, are there other options out there on the market, such as refurbished or used, that would suit your needs? Personally, I will continue to use this iPhone for at least the next few years and hopefully more. It's been Fari, and I'll see you in the next one.